This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you by Language Blend, the new best way to learn Spanish. Language Blend focuses on what you actually need to live and get by abroad with daily one-on-one lessons, a dedicated texting partner. It's like living in a Spanish-speaking country without ever leaving home. Go to languageblend.com for more information. Welcome back to another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. My guest today is Chris Whitaker from Global Shenanigans. He's a trip leader, YouTuber. You can find him on Twitter, and he's pretty well known for doing some insane kayaking trips all around the world. So, Chris, welcome to the podcast. How's it going?
Thanks very much for having me on. Yeah, things are all good. I'm currently down in New Zealand, where I'll be based mostly for a year with some trips in and out. But yeah, all is good.
Nice. We got a solid 14-hour time zone difference here. I guess it'd be ahead or is it behind?
Today is Tuesday. I think I'm ahead. I think I'm in the future.
You are in the future. Oh my God, because it is Monday for me. Okay, cool. So Global Shenanigans is the brand. I thought a fun way to start would be maybe for some non-native English speakers. What are shenanigans? Do you want to define shenanigans for us?
That's a great question. Shenanigans is having fun, messing around, playing about, just kind of a playful, cheeky kind of attitude to things. So Global Shenanigans, it actually was my Instagram handle long before it became a business idea. And I thought it summed up what I was doing with my life, which was basically traveling around the world, having fun, having some good times, and just trying to enjoy everything that I could.
Sweet. And you're from New Zealand originally?
No, I'm actually from the UK. I'm down here just for a year.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I was kind of thinking like your accent kind of, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, my accent is a tricky one. Usually once people know, then they can start to hear it. But yeah, I get all sorts of guesses. I think just from doing seasonal work overseas for quite a while. And I spent 6 out of the last 8 years in Canada as well. So some words sound a little bit of a twang. Definitely not the normal British English people expect.
How much better would this podcast be if I had a British accent?
You have to work on that.
Yeah. Okay, so Global Shenanigans, and then there's also the YouTube channel called For Fun's Sake, For Fun's Sake Expedition. If people want to look that up, how are the two? Just so I understand, how are the two brands similar and different?
So, For Fun's Sake was the name of a specific trip. It was a 72-day, 1,600 kilometer sea kayak expedition from Lund in Canada to Skagway in Alaska. And that trip was just me and one friend, just a bit of fun. So we made the series about that. And then Global Shenanigans is my expedition company, so a commercial adventure tour brand, and that's kind of where they're separate. But I will start to, and have already started to, produce videos for Global Shenanigans of my own adventures, scouting out new trips, meeting local providers that I work with around the world, and then videos of the actual trips themselves and adventures around that. Over time, I will start to phase out For Fun's Sake, and that YouTube channel will eventually be called Global Shenanigans as well. But there's a few promotional things going on still, so I'll let it run for maybe till the end of this year, and then they'll both be one.
Okay. So you're leading tours, you're an expedition tour leader, and you're also a businessman. That's got to be an interesting balance.
Yeah, for a long time I was working as an instructor and a guide. So I teach snowboarding in the wintertime, and I work as a sea kayak guide mostly in the summer. And I was doing those, working around the world for a number of other companies for quite some time. And then I think I just was very aware of people in the industry that hit a wall, and they eventually felt like they weren't going anywhere. They were stagnating, and they quit the industry and they started to do something else, like a air quote normal job. And I was very aware of that, and I just wanted to make sure I was always leveling up and I was always pushing to something. So I had an idea for a while of starting my own company and continued to research this. I started to read a very different type of book, the sort of more business orientated books, more interested in that side of things, and started to grow my social media, knowing that at some point having an audience there would be beneficial. And yeah, time went on, maybe 4 years from when I started to think that way until I felt I was in a position that I could start doing my own tours. So I put it out there, put it on Facebook, put it on Instagram, and there was just a ton of interest straight away. The first trip I put up sold out within a week, and I had to make a second group, and it kind of went from there.
Hmm. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I do have quite a few buddies that are trip leaders as well, leading expeditions out in British Columbia and stuff like that. So I'm definitely familiar with it. You got to get all these certifications and the life saving stuff. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, that's right. You need to follow a pathway to get yourself qualified, and what's as important, sometimes even more so, is just the experience in the field and just knowing what to do when things ultimately do either go wrong or the plan changes. Being outdoors and leading multi-day, sometimes multi-week expeditions, the weather changes dramatically, particularly on the ocean. It could get pretty wild and potentially dangerous very fast if you don't act quickly. So, getting certified with the right training and the right skill set, and just knowing that when shit hits the fan, it's really not a big deal. You can deal with it, and then your guests, they spot the difference pretty quickly with those guides who are prepared and they know what to do, and those that kind of panic and just cause all sorts of issues.
Okay. And just so I can mentally picture it, are you like 100% dedicated to kayak trips, or do you also do, I don't know, like camping trips or skiing trips or mountaineering trips?
I do kayaking and hiking, mountaineering as well. So yeah, not just kayaking, but all sorts of outdoor adventures. At the moment, I have a kayak trip in Baja, Mexico, one in Belize, and a hiking trip up Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. And I'm
That's
actually
sick.
heading to Nepal in December to scout out a new hiking trip to Annapurna Base Camp. So I'm pretty stoked to get out there. The Himalayas is somewhere I've just always wanted to go and visit. So it's pretty awesome, really, using this business as a way to go to all these places I've always wanted to visit, work with local providers out there, bring business to them, and yeah, just kind of grow together with these local people and just make some mutually beneficial relationships all over the world.
Hmm. And to give people an idea, again, just run us through some of the kayak trips you've done. Was it you that did the one in Italy as well at the volcano islands, or is that someone else?
Yeah, that's right. That was me too. Yeah, I had a program in Sicily around Volcano, which is where the word volcano comes from. Like it's an active volcano island, and then
Hmm.
Stromboli as well, which has a eruptions every 20 minutes, like minor ones, and then it does have some more serious ones every few years. But yeah, that was me as well out in Sicily.
What's been your favorite trip so far?
Ooh, I would probably say the Kilimanjaro trip is a favorite, particularly the first one I ever did, because the out of 12 guests, I think it was 12, 11 of them were really good friends of mine from childhood, from my hometown, people that I always encouraged to go out and travel. And it was amazing to, not only one, have good friends of mine support me in my business, but also show them this side of life and like my world that I've always wanted them to see so much. So to have that group out there was epic. And then to go to Tanzania to the people there are just amazing
Hmm.
people, super friendly, and it was the first one for me, and the people there really encouraged me to kind of start this side of things. They saw some potential and encouraged me to come back with my own groups. So yeah, probably the Kilimanjaro trip, the first one I did.
That's cool. And what's your hometown? Do you want to shout it out or keeping it secret?
I grew up in a village called Stukely that I'll be very impressed if anybody listening to this has heard of it. But it's in Buckinghamshire in the UK, about an hour north of London, in the countryside.
I love it. So I had a question for you, Chris, which is, and imagine someone from Stukely reaches out. By the way, that'd be cool, or something like, or like I'm one town over. But I had a question for you. So mountaineering, I get it's pretty normal. It's been around for a long time. You hike the mountain. I like that stuff. But I think really only when I started jumping on Twitter, I noticed you were doing the kayaking tours. And I noticed this other guy, I think his name's John, who did this insane Panama kayaking tour. I don't know if you saw that like 6 months ago. I'm trying to get him on the podcast still. But I didn't really know that people were doing multi-day kayak trips. Can you explain what like a multi-day kayak trip is?
Yeah, I can. And actually, I'm also connected with John. He reached out during my Alaska trip. So yeah, he seems like an interesting guy too. But yeah, multi-day kayak trips. Basically, with kayaking, it's almost like imagining it as a tool for transport. It's like self-propelled transport. You have all of your stuff in the kayak, your camping gear, your food, all your clothes, and you're fully self-sufficient within that. And you basically, for sea kayaking at least, you read the tides, you read the weather, and you follow your way along the coast. And the beauty of kayaking is what you see from the kayak. It's not necessarily the activity itself. Like if you went skiing or snowboarding, that is the fun bit. But with kayaking, it's what you see from your boat. So it could be different landscapes, different cultures if you're in a new country, going from village to village and seeing those changes. And then for me, my favorite thing is the connection with nature and the ability to see wildlife quite close as well. Because, if you do a whale watching tour, you have a big engine boat, you drive and it makes noise
Right,
and you're going
right.
to see it. But to see it from a kayak where the animals almost feels as if they've come to you, it really is next level if you're seeing wildlife from a boat. So that's the big appeal for me.
Yeah, I was so fascinated reading John's recounting on Twitter of his solo kayak adventure, and it was honestly mind blowing because it was like he's like, yeah, I just pulled up to this, indigenous island, met the indigenous people, they made me fish and they had lukewarm beer and it was just me and like the five guys on the island and we did a camp or whatever. I was like, that is insane. Just pulling up to a little island, just being like, hey, anyone got some food here? And they'd be like, how'd you get here? And you're like, oh, I just kayaked.
That's how it is, man. When I did this kayak trip up into Alaska, it's pretty wild up there, obviously. And 72 days, we're going for over a week sometimes without seeing any other people. And
Wow.
we actually had a pretty amazing experience. We got to the Kitasu Hehes Nation, who are based in Klemtu, and somehow we had the chief's phone number. We were told ring the chief when you get there because it's a reserve land, so you're not allowed to be on it if you're not part of the tribe there. So we phoned
Right.
him and said we've arrived. Where can we camp, or can we camp here? And he drove down, said hi, gave us a tour of the ceremonial big house. And while he was doing that, it started pissing down with rain, and he turned to us and said, "You can just stay in the big house if you want." I'm like, "Definitely." So we sleep in this big house. It's got sand on the ground. It's got totem poles on either corner, and it's like huge, it's like a gymnasium. It's massive. So we set up camp in there, and he invites us to his house, and we have some drinks with him, having whiskey with the chief, and he's telling us all about their culture and their history. And we start talking about mushrooms and their therapeutic effects. And after like a while of drinking and talking about mushrooms, again, he turns to us like, "Do you guys just want to take some mushrooms?" We're like, "Hell yeah!" And he opens up his little stash, and we end up taking some magic mushrooms with him, and he takes us all on this full-on spirit quest. He turns into the spirit guide of that, and asking these crazy, super deep questions like, "Who are you? Why are you here?" All that kind of thing. So yeah, these events just kind of happen. You have to put yourself out there and just turn up and see what happens. You can't pay for that kind of thing. You just gotta be out there and do it.
No, yeah, these are the stories I'm searching for on the podcast, man. That's hilarious. So you started in Lund, in
Lund, yeah,
BC, which I'm looking at. It's like kind of near. It's like basically near Vancouver, in Powell River, and then you basically take that way north up
yeah.
into, and that's nowhere near Alaska. You basically kayaked from Vancouver to Alaska.
Yeah, so getting to the border of Alaska was only halfway. So that's the halfway point. You then do that again to get to Skagway. So yeah, I remember texting my family back home like, "Hey, we just made it to Alaska," and like, "Oh, okay, so you're there a lot quicker than we thought.
Congratulations.
You'll be done. You'll be home soon, right?" Like, no, no, no. We still got a month to go.
And why Skagway?
Skagway is the terminus of the Inside Passage. So the route we did is basically a shipping route that the official start is down in Seattle. But during the Klondike Gold Rush, people were rushing from Seattle up to Skagway to get further north to the Yukon River for gold. So it's a shipping route, and then over the years, kayakers have started doing it, and then it's become a bit of like a pilgrimage that sea kayakers in the Pacific Northwest want to try and do at least once in their life, either the whole thing or section by section. So I used to work on Vancouver Island, so that start point was where I was based for a couple of years, and then Skagway just made sense. It's like the armpit of Alaska almost, if you were to look at the map.
Yeah, yeah, I'm looking at it. It's they got the Klondike Gold Rush National Historic Park Visitor Center.
There you go.
Did you go in there?
I think so. If it's like if it's the free one, yeah, it's
Okay,
all
wow.
the
And then what do you
a lot of
go
the
ahead?
cruise ship people are around there. So like, there's a cruise ship from Seattle all the way up, and they'll be coming out of their boats all looking fairly manicured like normal tourists. And me and my friend, we have these huge beards. We haven't shaved for 2.5 months. We're like salty. Our clothes have holes in them. We probably stink. And people are coming up to us and asking us like, "What have you been doing? Like, you look like you have a story to share. Like, what is going on?"
And what did you tell them?
We told them we just kayaked here from Vancouver Island.
I like it. And so is that the main variation? Are there other variations of this trip?
Of the kayaking the Inside Passage, you mean?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Some people, there is what's known as the outside passage. So the way we went, you use the islands for shelter. So you try and stay inside. The
Yeah, I
water's
see
a
that.
bit calmer. But if you were to go on the outside, the water is far rougher. It's a lot sketchier, and that's called the outside passage. So people have been known to do that as well. People do it in different crafts. It's not just kayaking. There's a lot of sailors around there. There are stories of people canoeing it too. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
Did you go to and I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but did you go to Haida Gwaii, it's like one of the bigger islands there, but it's like a little bit off the mainland?
Haida Gwaii. No, we didn't go to Haida Gwaii because it is a pretty big crossing. So
Yeah.
it would take us a bit out the way, but it is an incredible place. I would love to go and visit.
Hey guys, quick break from the episode to tell you about Bitrefill. Bitrefill allows you to shop online and in person without banks, converting your crypto directly into merchant balance. We're talking gift cards to Nike, Amazon, Apple, Airbnb, Hotels.com, and many more, all paid for with crypto. Bitrefill offers more than 10,000 gift card options in 180 countries, including the USA, Canada, all across Latin America, including Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, El Salvador, and many more. You can also apply the code MyLatinLife at checkout to get 10% back on your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information. Yeah, give me a little bit more like the day to day of the kayaking. So I actually did I mean, this is nothing in comparison, but I did like a pretty cool camping trip this summer where we had to canoe to the campsite, and it was like 4 hours to canoe to the campsite and stuff. So I do some outdoorsy stuff like that, and so I'm just trying to picture what this looks like. So you have the kayak; it's a one person kayak, I'm assuming, and everyone has individual kayaks, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
And
that's right. So there's two of us just in our own separate boat, single kayaks.
okay, and they kind of have this like canvas elastic thing around the circle where the seat is, and then I imagine you're putting all your gear kind of behind you or in front of you where your legs are.
So the sea kayaks are designed for expeditions. So they're quite long, narrow boats, and you can kind of imagine them as being hollow inside with storage hatches. So where you sit in the cockpit, it basically ends right behind you, and then the front of it is just past your feet. So that's blocked off, and then you have a spray skirt. So this neoprene skirt that goes around you and locks you in there. Well, doesn't lock you in, but you're in there, and water can't get in. And then the rest of the boat is storage. So you have these dry hatches that you could put your camping gear in and put all your food, which would be enough for sometimes up to 2 weeks at a time. And then would basically just be going from town to town, breaking down the journey into these separate legs. So go A to B, B to C, and so on. And just having enough food to get to each place. And then you resupply at each town, go to the grocery store, buy whatever you can, fresh veggies and we had some dehydrated food as well to last, and get some other things that are needed. And then, yeah, we'll just go off again. And every evening, I would be looking at the charts, planning the next day, how far we're going to go, which would roughly be 25 to 30 kilometers. So I'd look at the charts around that distance ahead, have a look and see what looked like it might be a decent campsite by looking at the shape of the land around it to see if it's flat, see if there's a river, so we get water, see if it's got a beach there, and also to make sure it's not too tidal, because the tidal range there is massive. So if you end up on the wrong beach, you might have to carry your boats 2 or 3 kilometers to get back to the water at a low tide. So checking all of those things, and then yeah, each day we'd wake up early, get breakfast on, pack all our stuff away, kayak for 2 hours, take a break, kayak for another 2 hours, have lunch, another 2 hours, take a break, and then that final 2 hours we start looking for the campsite and trying to find a place to go. So usually about 8 hours of kayaking a day. Sometimes it was up to 12, depending on the conditions and whether we could find a campsite or not and how stormy it was. But yeah, just spending pretty much all day on the water and just progressing along, experiencing the Inside Passage and the Pacific Northwest.
I'm basically gonna call this episode "How to Sea Kayak the World." We're gonna let's keep going. So, what do you do for the water? Are you using one of those drops that purify the water, or are you using like a filter device? Or
Yeah, we had this really cool filtration device where it's like a bag or a sack, and you fill that with water, and you hang it from a tree, and the water comes through a pipe, and it's then purified once it comes through. We did have that, although to be honest, we didn't really use it a whole lot. Um, After a week, it just kind of became another chore, and we felt that we could. This I wouldn't advise people to do this, obviously, but we just drank straight from the water, from the rivers, drank the water straight from it. It was raining so much, and we could see. We felt like we could see where the water was coming from. It's like right at the top there, and yeah, we just drank straight from the river. But generally, they say if water's touched the ground, you should purify
hmm, that's interesting. So you're literally kayaking in the river, and you're just like grabbing a handful of water in your mouth.
it. Well, we're on the sea, but if you we'll find a river to fill up, and then kind of jump in it, have a swim,
Okay,
clean, and then just drink straight out of that.
yeah, sure. That was kind of a dumb question, but yeah, but cool. So no, I like it. So the campsite. So is it a special type of tent, or that like fits in a kayak and that kind of thing?
Any tent really, as long as it's small enough and it doesn't have too much metal, so you can pack it in. I actually had a hammock, so I slept in a hammock the whole time. But my friend
No,
and partner on this trip, he had a tent.
you did a hammock the whole time.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a hammock enthusiast. I think it's it's somewhat of an art form, and yeah, I just got really into hammocking early on in my guiding career, actually, because whenever you're with guests, you get to a campsite, they go set up their tents, you start making coffee and food and stuff, and by the time you set up your camp, all the flat spots are gone. So having a hammock is perfect because you just need trees, so you can always find a good spot. And yeah,
Mm,
once you get into it and you learn the right way to do it, often people, when you picture a hammock, you picture like that U kind of banana bending shape,
right.
which is good for like just reading a book in, but you shouldn't sleep in one like that because it's really bad for your back. If you want to actually sleep in a hammock, you need to get it as tight as possible. So pull the rope super tight, should be completely taut. And then when you lay in it, your spine is also completely flat. So it's a lot more comfortable than sleeping on the ground, I find. And yeah, once you get used to it, it's pretty nice, cozy, like a little cocoon.
Okay, that makes sense. So are you trying to find a place with like three or four trees so that you can have it as like a flat like rectangle?
No, so I just need 2 trees. We pull it really tight, and then I have a top as well. So I put the top above that, and then that just pulls out into the ground. So your body kind of just pushes it out. Yeah, it kind of like has these runners, I guess, that goes tight, and then when you go in it, it kind of just sinks down. And like the width of the tree, I guess, is what keeps it wide
Huh.
as well.
Okay, so it's like a lay flat hammock, and then you just get a blanket or something.
Yeah, like in a sleeping bag. It's pretty
That's
cozy. The
crazy.
downside is obviously every morning you have to get out of the hammock to then get changed, like under the tarp, and it's probably raining, and you have to just do everything under this little tarp hammock space. Like you don't obviously can't stand up in it like you could in a tent or like kneel or whatever. So you're a little restricted in that sense, but other than that, I find it pretty cozy.
How are the mosquitoes?
Actually, not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Although looking back at the footage that we got, I noticed in most of the episodes when I'm talking to the camera, there's just bugs like all around my face and flying around, which maybe I didn't notice at the time, or I just found a way to just block it out. But I don't remember them being that bad, but they do seem to have appeared in most of the videos.
And after 72 nights in a hammock, was sleeping in a normal bed weird?
It would feel really warm. So at the very end, yeah, we stayed in a we actually had a couch surfing guy, and yeah, staying inside just felt really hot and stuffy. You know, we wanted the windows open. We wanted that breeze. Just so used to being outside, and even at the towns when we went for a resupply and would go to the pub, grab a couple of beers and recharge stuff and connect to Wi-Fi. It just felt really warm and hot and stuffy being inside all the time, and you actually really don't want to be there. You know, it just feels so noisy and busy. I was actually really looking forward to just leaving every town we got to. Like, as nice as it was to have a shower and a bit of a rest and some different food, I'd always be itching just to get away again. And you know, you spend a load of money on, I don't know, you spend like $20 on a burger and chips and get some beers too, and it costs so much. And like, I probably would have had a better time if I was just in the forest and just at the campfire.
Tell me more about this kind of dichotomy or feeling between the city and the forest.
It's a strange thing, especially during this kayak trip with those cruise ships that go past, that you could be 6 days into nature, haven't seen a person, you're camping tucked away in the forest, and then this floating city goes past. And those Disney cruise ships, like they play Disney movies, so you can like see the movie on the screen and the slides and like hear the noise of it. And you know, if you're into cruises, fair play. Like it's whatever. It's a cool way to see the area, but you just feel so far removed. Um, you know, I really felt like we saw everything. Like I saw every whale that went past. I saw every bird. Like I heard all of it. And from meeting even like other sailboats, we chat to people who did the same course we did that day, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we didn't see any whales today." I'm like, "Oh really? I saw like 7 or 8, and we did the exact same pathway." So I guess the way we did it is so slow, and you move slow and steady, and you know you're physically exerting yourself to do it. But I also feel like you really get the true experience. Like you get everything from it. You don't miss anything, and almost feels like you're part of nature in that sense that you are just another animal out in the forest surviving, and other animals move past you in that kind of way. You know, they don't see you as threat. You're not there to eat them or attack them. You know, I had a deer come right up to my boat and to start like sniffing at the end of my boat, and you just kind of feel so at one with everything that's going on around you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Tell me a little bit more about survival and like the food situation.
Um, we had one. Well, actually, we had a couple days where things did get a bit shit because both of our gas cookers stopped working at the same time. I think the salt maybe corroded the end, and we like couldn't screw it on, and for whatever reason, it just stopped working. And this was on Admiralty Island, which is an island that has the densest population of grizzly bears in the entire world. There is an average of one grizzly bear per square mile on that island. Um, yeah, it sounds nuts, but if you Google it, I'm pretty sure that's what it was, and it's
I'll
crazy. It's
Google
a lot of
it. Yeah,
grizzlies.
it's a big ass island. It's right near Juneau.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And
Okay.
yeah, I guess knowing that about the Grizzlies makes it feel extra scary that we started to not have access to our hot food. So yeah, the gas stopped working. It was probably the coldest week of the trip. It was into single digits Celsius. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but
Yeah.
not too far from freezing. And the cold wind is coming off the top of the glaciers on the mountains. It's raining. It's not stopped raining for maybe a week, and then our gas stoves aren't working, which means all we have to eat is cans of tuna, which is what we had for lunch. And luckily, we had spares of them. So, for breakfast, we're having a snack bar and a can of tuna. For lunch, we're having tuna wraps, and then for dinner, we're eating more tuna. So there's just nothing to like motivate you and to boost you and lift your mood, which is what the hot food and hot meals are. So for those days until we got to Juneau, it felt a little low for that. And luckily, we had enough food, we would survive. But yeah, motivation was definitely seeping away at that time. Um, but yeah, other than that moment, we actually ate pretty well. It was a big part of our trip. Me and my friend, we decided that we would get everything out of this trip. We would experience it and have a good time. So our motto of the trip was eat well, have fun, not die. So we ensured that we were spending money on good food and, we'd have a drink at the end of the day as well and really try and feel like we're thriving in nature, except for that one moment at Admiralty Island.
So what does good food mean? Like what are you bringing or buying, or are you fishing as well?
We didn't fish. I really wanted to begin with, but then I actually read in a guidebook that if you are fishing, you are running the risk of covering yourself in the scent of what the grizzly bears eat. So if you catch a salmon, that's exactly what the grizzlies are looking for that time of year, and there's just no way of getting rid of that smell. Yeah, so
Okay.
it's
Well, you're risk with tuna.
that is true, but the tuna can is a little easier to manage. Like if you're cleaning a fish on the beach, you're just covered in it. So that's more the risk. Yeah, you'll just smell like fish, and there's no way of washing it off. So yeah, fishing is something I did want to do, but yeah, we decided not to for that reason. And then also the extra hassle of doing it was so exhausted by the time you get to camp. You kind of just want to have a
I just
pre-made
thought you
meal.
could
So we had a
maybe
lot of
like you could like
dehydrated.
you know what trolling is, right? Where you just like leave a line behind the boat and you know, like couldn't you
Yeah,
just do
yeah.
that? Like run a line from the kayak?
Sorry, the sound's gone a bit weird. Let me get my other headphone in. Sorry, say that one more time.
Yeah, don't worry, I hear you still. So couldn't you just run a line from the back of the kayak until you get a nibble and then I don't know, I just feel like it'd be something like fun to do at a minimum.
Yeah, that would be possible. It's something I do on my other trips, like on the Mexico trip, just where you have a bit more time. But yeah, just to clean the fish at the end of each day, and we had enough food anyway that you wouldn't want to risk not getting one. It is something I know
Okay.
people do, but to be honest with you, I'm not a very good fisherman anyway. So
I feel like you just run the line all day and then when you feel the tug, you just reel it in. I don't know. But so what did you do for food? Like what was like what's the ideal or the best camp meal? If I was with you and I was like, "Yo, give me we're out in the forest or whatever." I'm like, "Yo, hit me your best camp meal. I'm ready."
we were having a lot of dehydrated pastas and curries. So my friend on this trip, Nuka, he spent some months making these dehydrated meals. So it's basically like almost a vacuum packed sauce with all the flavor and all the good stuff in. And you just put it in the pan with some water and kind of expand. So yeah, some curries, pasta dishes was good. For breakfast, we had these pre-made like protein and oatmeal with like dehydrated fruit in there, so it would like kind of all melt together and tasted really good. Basically, any big, dense, high calorie, high carb meal is just impossible to be full. So yeah, just going real heavy, loading up on an insane amount of cheese as well.
Right, because you need things that last. It sounds like when you say the dehydrated stuff, it sounds like you're going to the moon.
I guess it's the same sort of idea, but it just
Right?
the by dehydrating it, it just takes all the moisture out, and then it's already made. You literally just put it in the pan, heat it up with some water, and then you got like your sauce, your curry sauce or pasta sauce is just there, ready to go. So it's much quicker. It means every meal only takes like 20 minutes to make.
I have a controversial take on camping, which is let's just say you go for a 2 night weekend thing. Most people spend so much time with the little gas thing and trying to get a fire going on the mini Coleman burner, and like it's crazy wind and like it's barely working and the meat's like half cooked. I'm like, this is horrible. I'm like, if you're just going to do a 2 night trip, just go 2 nights without cooking hot food, without even bringing the Coleman, and just eat, eat, raisins and dates and granola bars and all that stuff.
I'm not going to argue with you because that's actually what I do as well sometimes. If I'm, especially with backpacking where you have to carry all of this yourself, I'd
Right.
often pre-make my dinners and just have a Tupperware of like a pre-made pasta, and I'll just eat it cold um, in that evening because I can't be bothered. If I'm by myself, I yeah definitely bare bones it. I guess with other people, when there's many of you carrying all the stuff, and part of the experience is cooking around the fire and doing all that. But yeah, it definitely adds a lot of weight carrying all this extra food stuff if you're hiking, and to actually get like a good meal going as well. It can be a lot of effort. You are right.
Yeah, I mean, campfires are dope, but I feel like it's better when people are just in the moment, eat their granola bar and like talking to each other instead of like finicking around with the friggin' Coleman because they have to have eggs.
Yeah, eggs are not an easy one to be moving around with either.
What do you do about like freeze, like frozen stuff, or keeping stuff cold? I mean, the water's cold. Like, would you do
Um,
that? Like, put like beers in the water, or I don't even know.
yeah, so the solution to that is to drink red wine because it doesn't need to be cold.
Ooh,
Yeah, so we'd
genius.
kayak, we'd get, they're called goon bags in like Australia and other places. That's what I call them. Do you know what I mean? Like the bag of red wine, bagged wine, I guess is
Yeah,
what
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
guys
It's like
call
a
them.
3 liter
Yeah, yeah,
bag
yeah.
or something.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
we'd get.
goon bag.
Yeah, you not heard that before?
No, no, that sounds very Australian to me.
Yeah, that's what they call it, and I guess that's what I've called it since meeting a few Aussies. Yeah, you get a goon bag each, so you take it out the box and burn the box, and then you just have the bag in between your feet inside the cockpit, and then it gets smaller throughout the trip as well, which is good. Because the issue with like hard liquor, if you have bottles like tequila and
The
rum,
glass.
exactly, once you've finished it, you still have to take the glass with you, so that's annoying. Like beer cans, you can crush
Or
them
you
up.
put it in like a big water bottle, I guess.
Oh, that's true. Put it in a plastic bottle. Yeah, beer
Water
cans. They're
bottle
gonna
or
be
gin bin.
warm. So we'd kind of treat ourselves. If we just left the town, we'd maybe get a couple beers and some burgers and hot dogs for our first night, and then go back on the normal rations. Um, yeah, my birthday was during the trip, so for that night we did have a bottle of tequila and some cigars to celebrate that one. But yeah, red wine is really what you should be drinking if you go camping. That's the top tip.
Hey everybody, hey everybody. Quick break from the podcast to tell you about Language Blend, the best new way to learn Spanish. Language Blend was co-founded by Jake Nomada, friend of the podcast, decade of experience in Latin America, and Jake and his team, they put everything into this program that they wish they had in terms of how to level up quickly with your Spanish language skills. Because the faster that you can get conversationally fluent in Spanish, the better the experience that you're going to have in Latin America. So go to languageblend.com for more information. I have a random question, which is, so you have all these cans from the tuna, and I assume you're pretty good about leave no trace and don't leave anything behind. And you're so many days in between civilization. Are you like, rolling up to these towns with like 7 days worth of cans and it's like clinking and you have all this garbage you have to unload?
Yeah, yeah, exactly that. So yeah, the tuna cans they are an annoying one because you can't really crush it up much smaller. With food that you don't eat, so like the parts of the pepper that you don't actually eat or the other bits. With those things, you can leave in the intertidal zone. So that's the common practice in these kind of trips. So between the high and low tide, basically you can leave food in there and also human waste too, because when the tide comes up, all the other little animals, little crabs, that kind of stuff, they'll feed on that and get rid of it pretty quick. Also, because it's so remote, there's no one really in these areas. so it doesn't have an impact because the tide comes up and washes it away. If you're in more populated areas, the practice is to actually dump it 500 meters from shore, and then that way it doesn't wash up on the shore, and then the animals can still eat it and get
And
rid
sorry,
of it.
what is this again?
This is for like food waste that you don't want.
Like banana peels and stuff?
Yeah, more like the edible stuff. Banana peels, I'm not sure if they would um, decompose as well, but like human waste and other food waste, that's how you get rid of it. And then yeah, things like cans and wrappers and plastic, we would keep that in a trash bag and just pack it into one of our boats, and be pretty desperate to get rid of it by the time we got to the next town.
Okay, cool. So we're in the middle of nowhere. We got okay, this is good. This is good. So maybe we could switch gears a bit off Alaska. Although, shoot, I did want to ask about the crabs. You just mentioned that. Would you ever like hunt some crabs and like cook up like a wild crab?
No, we actually didn't. Yeah, again, it's not really just the time. I think the time and the effort. We spent our evenings just drinking wine, smoking some joints, and watching Netflix. So we were pretty busy, I guess.
Gotcha. And so that's funny because all my buddies in BC are like spearfishers and shit like that.
If it was a shorter trip, for sure. If it was like a weekend trip or just a week, definitely. Because this was such a long trip, you really don't want any extra gear. So, even bringing a fishing rod is going to kind of get in the way. It was hard just to fit everything in the boat, just food, and the
Hmm.
camping gear for that amount of time. So it's more that any kind of luxury or something that is just a pastime you'd get rid of. I had a Kindle to read, and I had my phone, which I'd use for the weather and the charting, and then that had Netflix downloaded on it. So that's kind of all the
Hmm.
entertainment we needed. Yeah, things like spearfishing, fishing, foraging would all be
Wait,
awesome
on a
to do.
Kindle? There's Netflix on a Kindle?
No, no, on my phone.
On your phone.
Netflix on my
Okay.
phone.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And then you have a power bank to charge it, and there'd be enough power to get through. But yeah, any of the
Got it.
extra stuff is awesome to do, and in BC and in Alaska are great places to do it. But on this trip in particular, it was a bit more bare bones.
Got it. And did you try to do it during the dry season?
Yeah,
Like the whole trip?
the window's kind of from like May until the end of September, kind of early September is when you want to be finishing. Um, yeah, dry season it still rains like pretty much the whole time, but you're not in the
Yeah.
storm season at least. Like the big storms start to kick up in September, October, and some of these areas are pretty dangerous. Cape Caution is one in particular, and as the name suggests, it's pretty sketchy. There can be like 30-foot waves kicking into this corner, and we were just very lucky the days we approached these areas. There were some calm weather windows that we were able to pass through, and for a whole trip, actually, we were very lucky. We were in a pretty big storm. So big that there's some water spouts forming on the water. Those like mini tornadoes where the water like spirals
Sure,
up.
yeah.
So we had some of those, and you're just gripping your paddle, both hands, head down, just scared that the wind's going to rip the paddle from your hands. So we had something like that, but in terms of like big wave storms, we were quite lucky that we could still paddle every day of the trip. We didn't get landlocked any days.
Hmm. Absolutely epic trip. Wow, my God. What and did you go there and back? Or what do you do once you get to Skagway?
We flew back, so actually we managed to
Okay.
arrange selling the kayaks within 24 hours after arriving. I managed to arrange the sale like during the trip to get rid of those and a lot of our gear, and then yeah, I flew back to Vancouver and then back to the UK.
Hmm. Random question, how much you sell the kayaks for?
Oh, how much were they? I think it was about $2,000.
Each?
2,000 US. Yeah, yeah, they're pretty expensive boats. We sold them
Holy
for just a
crap.
we sold them for just a little bit less than what we paid for them. We actually did pretty well. Everyone got a good deal actually, because it's a very hard place to get boats. Was it 2,000 or 4,000? I can't remember. It's 4,000 Canadian actually, so it might have been a bit more than that.
Wow, I didn't realize they were that expensive.
Yeah, sea kayaks, fiberglass sea kayaks are pretty pricey, but they're good boats. They'll last a lifetime.
Fiberglass. And did you ever have to like patch it or like did you have to bring some sort of like weird glue material to patch holes?
Yeah, we did have a repair kit, which is kind of like sheets of plastic that you can glue on as a quick fix.
Yeah.
Yeah, fortunately, we didn't have to use it for that. We did have so they have a rudder or like a rudder system, like a skeg system. The cable
Yep.
of my buddy's one broke, so he did have to fix that, I think. But other than that, yeah, we were took very good care of them, and luckily didn't hit any random rocks accidentally. Um, yeah, we didn't have to do any major repairs. I just lost my shoes a lot. That's the main issue I had. I went through I think
How's that happen?
I went through 6 or 7 pairs of shoes during that trip.
How?
a
Where do they
number
go?
a number of ways, mostly from the salt water, like just destroying them and like my foot going through the bottom of it. I lost another pair during a high tide. There was a super high tide one night that we weren't really prepared for, and I heard it in the night. I woke up to hearing the boats rocking, and I rushed down to the beach and realized everything was floating. Like, luckily, I had tied the boats up anyway, but the log they were on, they were like rocking around, and we had left some stuff on the beach, and like my kayak stuff was just starting to float on the log it was on. So I lost some shoes during that too, and yeah, it just became a bit of a running joke through the trip. I just kept losing shoes. That was my main hit.
What was the border crossing like, if any, from BC into Alaska?
That was quite a strange experience because we didn't know anything about it until we got there. It was very hard to find information, and we were actually in the US for 4 days until we got to Ketchikan, which is the first town that you can go into immigration. So
Hmm.
yeah, we just have on the GPS. We crossed over, and it just went ding. It says you are now in the US, and then there's nothing there. I thought there'd be a sign or something like "Welcome to the US," but there wasn't even a sign. So nothing happens. You're just in there, and then it took a few days to get to the town, and then we just parked our boats on a dock and walked over to immigration. Just knocked on the door, said, "Hey, we're here to check in, we guess." And yeah, they were like, ask us how we got here. They were quite surprised that we had kayaked here. I think there's like a number you men a phone, and they'll just come and see you at the dock. But yeah, we just rocked up, said we're here, and yeah, signed in, and that was it. Really, just tell them the name of your boat. And my buddy being Canadian, it was a bit easier for him. But me being from the UK, I needed the ETSA visa waiver thing, which I'd already done. So they
Right.
just check your
Yes.
documents, and yeah, yeah, that's the one. Just check your documents and sign you in. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, good luck.
Well, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Did you see a lot of like patrols, like U.S. like what's it called, Coast Guard?
No, no, I don't recall seeing any really. Near the towns, there's a lot of fishing boats around, so there might have been some just cruising around with the fishing boats. But yeah, I guess it's not really a border there to concerned with on that side. There's not a whole lot going on. There's people sailing either side of it fairly often, and they just sail into Ketchikan or into Prince Rupert if you're going into Canada, and just kind of sailing, and immigration comes to them at the docks there. But other than that, it was pretty casual.
Good to know. I think this is good intel. Hard to find.
Yeah,
And
for border
did you have
crosses.
a satellite phone? And yeah, people. I mean, our audience loves border crossings. Sorry, where was I? And so, did you have just a normal cell phone, or did you have like some kind of satellite phone, or and did you have like a solar thing? Like some of the portable chargers, for example, have like a mini solar panel on them.
We had a spot GPS device each, and you can pre-program it. So every night we'd press a button, and it would mark our location on this website, so people at home could see where we were. And it would also send
Hmm.
an email to some approved email addresses, so our families basically. Every night they'd get an email saying Chris and Nuka are okay, and click here to see where they are, and they could see exactly how far we'd gone. And you can use that device. It has three settings. So one is the OK email, two is the not okay but not emergency, and then the third one is like emergency Coast Guard trigger. So like you press it and it signals to the Coast Guard like where you are.
Okay, interesting. And did you use the solar panel thing?
No, we didn't actually have solar panels. We had what they called a power bank. So I use an Anchor power bank, and those things are so good. They last long enough as is. I think I had two of them just in case. But yeah, I had plenty of power with that. The solar panel, in our eyes, was just another thing that could break. And
Right.
with the power bank, we had enough juice that it wasn't actually needed.
Because an average power bank isn't like that. Is only like maybe two charges, three charges of a phone.
The one I have, yeah, it was pretty good. Anchor, Anker, I think. That's
Yeah,
been
yeah,
pretty
another
solid.
brand.
Um,
Because I think like there's like the 10,000 megawatt or whatever 10,000 megawatt ones, and then the 20,000. And I think those are like the two standard sizes. But yeah, even 20,000 is not like gigantic. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
just being very conservative with power, I guess, was the big thing. Like my phone is off except for either 20 minutes in the evening when I'm checking the charts, um, and then mostly just using the power bank to charge GoPros. And I had a drone with me as well. I did the whole trip with a drone in between my legs, just in case we saw something cool. And then we'd just use the phone for like luxuries, like something on Netflix, if we knew we were definitely going to get to the next town with enough juice on the GoPros. So that was like the last thing. But yeah, just being really conservative. Um, Having some extra GoPro batteries that helped as well, just to swap those out.
yeah,
And yeah, it seemed to be enough about the extra solar panel.
yeah, those GoPro batteries go fast. Mm,
Yeah, and a big thing
interesting.
too is just not turning it on unless it was like vital footage, because everything is so amazing out there. You could just film every single tree and every single mountain and just have hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage, and we still did have that. But yeah, just kind of knowing like, does this clip push the story? Is this something worth filming? And just kind of getting really strict on that. That definitely was what did it.
Cool. So I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about Belize and Mexico, maybe a bit of Italy, some of the more tropical ones that you've done for the My Latin Life audience. But yeah, I guess just to summarize, Alaska, it was good. It was a good trip. Worth it. Would
It
you do
was
it
worth it.
again?
I would I would actually do it again. Yeah, I'd probably wait 10 years and then do it again and do it even slower. We had a bit of a not a rush, but we had some time constraint that my friend Nuka that I went with. He has a fiance. They have a young child. The child came after the plan for our trip, so that's why we we still did our trip. So we had a bit of a time constraint that he needed to be back by a certain time to see his family, which obviously makes sense. So we didn't rush it, but we had to be at the end at a certain time. So if I was to do it again, I'd maybe have even longer, take the whole summer. Then I can really just go up every single inlet, see every single thing, take that fishing rod, and spend some time fishing as well.
Cool. So you did I saw the Belize one, which looked very cool. You've done the Sicily one, which that would be one of the ones I would like to do for sure. Baja California is coming up. Um, are those kind of the big notable ones?
Yeah, so those trips are all ones that I lead groups to, so people can actually join those if they wish. Um, yeah, each year I'm trying to add new locations, finding new places to go to, and I scout every trip myself first. So I head out there, meet the local team, just check that the standard that I need, and they are professional, and then I do the trip myself, which in Belize, which I did in April. I basically just borrowed one of their boats and went on like a 5 day little quest myself. They just told me where to go and met some of the people on these little islands and got some content to then share with people who might be interested in joining. But yeah, they're the current kayak ones are Belize and Baja. The Sicily one is not happening at the moment, but there's going to be a new Croatia trip coming next year instead.
Very cool. What do you think would be different about a kayak trip in, say, Belize compared to, British Columbia? Because it's a very different climate.
You definitely don't need to pack as much when you go to Belize. I had like my swim shorts and two t-shirts, and then the camping gear. That was pretty much it.
One
Yeah,
pair of shorts.
yeah, just the swim shorts because they're dry as soon as you get out. They dry out. That was for my own little scouting trip. So again, go a little bit bare bones. But yeah, you really don't need much. It's just so hot. The water is warm as well, so you're just in and out of the water all the time. We take snorkels on that, so you're kayaking and you see a ray go under the boat, so you like just jump out the boat and have a little snorkel, try and find it again. The food there, it's all Caribbean style, like barbecue food. Um, yeah, very chill, lots of relaxing time, just kind of in the sun, looking at a lot of the sea life under the water. In BC,
Hmm.
the sea life all kind of comes up, the whales and dolphins and stuff, like the much bigger things that are passing you by.
That would make sense. And then also just, I don't know, I guess it's definitely different pulling up to a what's it called, a mangrove or a white sand beach compared to the relatively rougher coastlines out in Alaska.
Yeah, that's right. In the Northwest, you can't just pull up anywhere. Even if you find a beach, sometimes the vegetation is just so dense you can't even get through it. We'd have to just go back in the boats and keep going. But in Belize, yeah, it's just sand beaches. A lot of these small islands, they've been in the same family's hands for generations and generations. So the caretakers of the islands are people that have owned it for a very, very long time. So they've kind of like manicured it a little bit and they keep it tidy. So it's a very relaxing, beginner to intermediate friendly kind of trip where you just go there and unwind and just live life in the sun for a week.
How would you rank the difficulty in terms of like Belize, Baja, Alaska? What's the easiest? What's the most difficult of those three or four?
Uh, Good question. Belize is very sheltered because it has the Belize Barrier Reef. So you're not really dealing with any big waves, but you can be dealing with wind. So I'd probably say Belize would be the easiest one. It's all very chill. Baja, depending on the time of year, you can get some pretty big storms in the wintertime.
Hmm.
But when we go is sort of April, May, where it's not so hot that you're absolutely roasting in the summer, but also the big storms have kind of already happened. And you still get some of the straggling whales around, which is cool. So yeah, Baja in the middle, and then up in BC, if you go in the summertime and you go on the inside of Vancouver Island, which is an area I'm hoping to scout out next year and start putting another trip together for the following year for groups to join on. If you go in there, you can get some fairly sheltered days because of the island and the land all around you, but it can turn pretty quick. And also, it being colder means when it does rain, it's a bit more of a hazard. In Baja, it's probably not going to rain in Baja, but in Belize, if it does rain, it's actually quite refreshing. It's like a welcome rainstorm.
Right, right. Okay, that's good. That's a good breakdown. I like that. So the Baja one, where do you go for? Where in Baja is it?
So it starts out in Loreto, and we go out from there to a place called Isla del Carmen, which is like a protected area. You need permits for
Hmm.
every night that you're out there, which is really great because it means the area is very maintained. The local companies, they will communicate together, and you actually can't camp on the same beach that someone else did for 2 days. You have to wait and let the habitat kind of recover from having somebody there. So it's really well
Wow.
protected, which is really good because it means the desert environment um, is maintained, and then it's a great one for wildlife, particularly dolphins. There's so many dolphins in the Sea of Cortez, in particular, but then this area they just kind of go on. Well, it seems like they just do a circuit around the island, and you just wait until you see them, and then just kayak out or just swim out, and they just go right past you. Like it's really, really amazing.
Okay, so Isla Carmen, which looks insanely amazing, and then do you keep going like all the way down to La Paz?
It is an option. The trips I do, we actually just stay on Carmen and just kind of go around for 4 days and then make our way back again over the last two with a total of 6 days. But it is possible. It is something I've looked at and will potentially do. I think it takes 11 days if you go from Loreto down to La Paz.
Yeah, there's a bunch of little islands on the way.
Yeah, it's a really amazing spot. Like La Paz, you probably know is like the spot for whale sharks if you go in the right time of year. So it is something
Hmm.
I've looked at trying to combine those two things and finish in La Paz with some whale sharks.
See, I did the whale shark thing in La Paz, but I was honestly, I'll tell you, I was a little bit disillusioned by it because it's the way they do it is pretty like whack and disrespectful. Where you go where the whale sharks are feeding, you pull up in like a couple pretty big boats with like 30 people on them, and then everyone, and there'll be like three boats with like 30 people each, and then you basically take turns basically jumping on top of the whale sharks or just jumping on the into the water and like attempting to touch the whales while they're feeding, and the whole thing's weird, and then they like tell you to come out of the water so that more people can jump in the water, and I don't know, it's just all like very rushed and stuff, and I feel like if you were maybe in a kayak and the more kind of chill setup that you're talking about, like it would be a totally different experience.
Yeah, exactly. That way you kind of feel that the whale shark could get away if it wanted to. Like I know exactly what you mean. Those power boats, they kind of park up right in front of where it's going, and then they just keep moving, and they kind of seem a bit blocked in or a bit hemmed in. So yeah, just spending as much time on the water around there in a kayak, odds are pretty good that one might just go past you coincidentally, and then you can see it in a bit more of a natural way.
Hey guys, quick interruption to tell you about Bitrefill. Bitrefill is the best way to convert your crypto into gift card balances. These are gift cards that you can spend at hotels.com, Airbnb, Nike, and many more. You may remember Joel Valenzuela, previous podcast guest. He's been living on crypto exclusively since 2015, and he's a big consumer of Bitrefill. And so I asked Joel, I said, what do you like most about Bitrefill? He said that he likes the instant delivery, the precise amount so that you don't have to juggle a lot of gift cards, and he loves the global selection. Nobody else has this much selection of gift cards, over 10,000 gift card options across hundreds of countries. Go to bitrefill.com to sign up, and you can also use the code MyLatinLife for 10% back off your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information. Do you have any good stories about the people you met along the way? It could be any trip, but kind of those just unexpected, good. I don't know, smoking a cigar, having a beer, whatever it is, and just hearing some cool random stories.
Yeah, there's one actually that sprung to mind immediately. You mentioned Sicily a couple times and that you'd like it over there. There's actually a hermit that we stayed with. He's a hermit that he basically built his own house in the beach on the cliff somewhere. It's all out of rock, and this guy is like, I think he's a mechanic by trade, so he's like really good with his hands. And this house is just so impressive. And this guy is like in his late 60s. He's been living there for I think 22 years, just slowly building this house. And on the front of it, there's a sign that says "Danger Viper," because he doesn't want any guests. Basically, he wants to scare tourists away. But I
Mm.
know someone that knows him that kind of said that gave us the intro and said that you can stay with him as long as you bring enough food for him as well, and then he'll cook food for you and the whole team. Oh, and that was it as well. Also, bring I think it's €10 per person per night for him, and he really loves cigars, so I brought him some cigars too. And he has no phone, so there's no way of even knowing if he'd be there. But we turned up, and I had in Italian. I had to get my friend to write this note, basically saying I am Eugenio's friend. We want to stay here the night. We have food, we have money, we have cigars. Like, can we stay here? And he read the note, and he's like, "Oh yeah, come in, come in." Let us in. He doesn't speak any English, this guy, and yeah, gave us a tour of his house, and it's just so impressive. He has a watchtower. He has a vegetable garden growing. He's built his own like toilet, like separate from the house. Two bedrooms as well with queen size. I don't know how he's got queen beds in there, but somehow he has. And he has this amazing house, and his name's Attila. And at the end, the next morning when we're going to leave, turns out he could speak Spanish, so someone else on the trip was speaking Spanish and communicating with him for me. We asked him at the end, next time I come next year, do you want me to bring money or should I just use the money to buy cigars? And he's like, cigar, cigar. Because that's what he's going to spend his money on anyway. So yeah, he chained through this pack of like five cigarillos in like the first couple hours I was with him. And yeah, that's a wacky guy.
That's cool. I want to hear another story about natives, either in Belize or in BC.
Yeah, in BC, we also went through the Heiltsuk Nation. So obviously, all the land there is claimed by various groups, but the Heiltsuk people, they have quite a big community and a lot of development too. And we were actually really fortunate that we came across this eco lodge, which was funded by Warren Buffett and some other multi-billionaire philanthropists had built this like mega eco lodge up in the cliffs. And because we're kind of early season, we're looking at this and we're like, they must have like food in there, like they must have something for us. And we're trying to think of a way of like how can we approach this house where it doesn't sound like we're asking to have food and a shower and like a bed to sleep in, but also that's exactly what we want. So we think the minimum thing we could ask for that no one would deny us is for water. So we pull up our kayaks and we start walking up and we bump into the caretaker and we say, have you got anywhere we could refill our water? He's like, yeah, of course, come up. And we go with him, and then this gives us time to explain like who we are and what we're doing because he hears my English accent. My friend I'm with is Canadian, but from the East Coast, so we both sound like a bit weird to even be together and to be there. He asks what we're doing. We explain we've kayaked here from London, we're going to keep going to Skagway. And they're like, oh, wow, like, do you want a beer? Like, tell us a bit more. And we have a beer and we keep telling them stories. And like, oh, well, we're making burgers. Do you want dinner as well? Oh, yeah, I guess so. I guess we could have dinner. And then eventually it gets to that time and we ask him, like, can we camp outside? So, oh, well, we have this whole guest room you could stay in. Like, why don't you just stay over there and you can take a shower? And, we ended up having this really amazing sort of restorative night there, like having beers and burgers and showers, and like in this amazing building that is basically for the Heiltsuk Nation. They have summer camps there, and they teach their own people about their culture. They pass on traditional dances for the kids to learn, and then they show their parents at the end of their time at the summer camp. But yeah, we were just there really early season, and they were just kind of setting it up, and were really welcoming and let us stay there and use some of that stuff, which was awesome to experience. But yeah, really wild that it was built by or funded by Warren Buffett and some other folks out there.
It's funded by Warren Buffett.
Yeah, yeah. He funded the building there, I think.
Where was this? Sorry.
In BC, like in a very remote part, kind of like in northern BC, after Vancouver Island, like that next section up
Yeah.
from there.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I mean those are the coolest experiences, right? Like having someone, take you into their home and give you tea and that kind of level of hospitality that is kind of slowly disappearing, right?
Yeah, exactly. The people we met up there were so welcoming. It's like I feel like, especially in Alaska, everyone in Alaska has this kind of like wild side to them and some kind of thing in them. Like they like adventure, they like outdoors. Everyone's on their own kind of crazy path and journey there that they're all just so happy to hear yours and help you on the way with your one. Like we had people invite us into their sailboats, give us food, give us drinks, just want to hear some stories and just want to be somehow involved in the journey that we were on.
Right. It sounds like you were dishing out the stories more than than listening to other people's, but in a good way.
Yeah, that's kind of the way you had to do it. Like we kind of joked around a lot that we're like traveling bards of like medieval times that you just kind of go and share some stories in exchange for a bit of food because that's what people want to hear. They want a bit of entertainment on their path. It's like if you ever hitchhike, if you're a hitchhiker, you have to entertain the driver. That's like the payoff.
Is that how it is? You can't just be quiet and play chess.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that's allowed.
I like that. So I know when we were talking before, we wanted to dedicate a little bit of time about just talking about living a more fulfilling life of adventure, kind of getting out of your routine, or choosing a life that's more memorable and that kind of thing. It's kind of tough to kick it off or transition into that, but do you have any kind of like philosophies on that, maybe like the average 9 to 5 versus the adventure lifestyle?
I've always pursued experiences over possessions. It's kind of something that's happened for me, not necessarily out of a original ethos or anything. It's just something that's developed over time. I think as someone who didn't go to university, I started as a gap year and just wanted to travel and see the world. And then I slowly found ways I could work and earn money at the same time, which then grew into passions and develops eventually into a purpose that I feel for me. I know for other people, sometimes you do the same thing, but it may be snowballing down a path you didn't originally plan, or you may have realized now that actually what I'm living and working for isn't who I wanted to be or what I wanted to do with my time or my life. So I feel like it's really important for people to recognize that and to almost take a step back from their life and think, is this what I want to be doing? And if it is, that's awesome. Or if it's not, like, what are the things that can help me lead a more fulfilled and more purposed life, which often travel is the answer for a lot of people, not necessarily everybody, but seeing the world and getting more out of the experiences of meeting other humans, learning about other cultures. And if having a regular 9 to 5 job is a way you can fund that, then that's what works for a lot of people. But I know with your audience, especially, they're the type that are starting to learn and hear of ways to move their life and take it overseas where you can actually get a lot more, not just for your money, but for your time. You know, if you're working a 9 to 5, imagine if you were working it next to an incredible beach. And when you clock off, you just go to the beach and spend a few hours there, taking it all in, surfing or in the mountains. And with life
Yeah.
becoming more and more digital and people have the ability to work from home or work online, it's something that I think people really need to look into and start taking serious advantage of, because the time has never been better to become not necessarily nomadic if that's not what you're into, but just to maybe uproot and realize that you can literally work and live anywhere, and maybe to start considering where and why you are where you are and where you might prefer to be instead.
Hmm. And did the mushroom shaman out in BC, did that did that have any revelations about who you are and the path that you're on? Or just in general has what, or just in general along the way, like what's kind of changed about your perspective?
It did actually. He did ask a question of why are you here, meaning why is in your purpose for life, like why are you here in this world? And I definitely felt that the purpose I have found now is to help other people lead more fulfilled lives, and the way I've found to do that is through adventure travel. So using the skill set I've found through over a decade of working in the outdoors, I know how to do these trips. I know how to organize them, and I have traveled around the world and found some pretty amazing places. And I know when I look back on my life, like I've loved, I've loved it. Like I've done such cool stuff, and I'm really excited to keep doing that and to hopefully bring more people along that journey with me. Taking people out on multi-day kayak trips or multi-day hikes up mountains and just experiencing a different level of travel that most people have maybe not done before. A lot of people have backpacked. They might have been to Thailand and Southeast Asia, been to Mexico and visited a few towns, but to take it a step further and actually spend some time in nature, in the mountains, on the beaches, and spend a few days a bit more removed from society and the busyness of city life and everything that comes with it. That's kind of what I've started pushing towards now myself.
Hmm. Do you ever regret not going to university?
No,
Why not?
I found that it wasn't necessary for me. I kind of stumbled into what is working now for me. I guess it may have been fun. I don't regret not going because I think what I've stumbled into has been really great and it has all worked out in the end. Um, I know it does benefit a lot of people, and maybe I would have seen a clearer path earlier on had I gone. But it also means I would have missed out on a few of the things I end up doing instead. I actually didn't know the outdoor industry was a thing until I started working in it. I didn't know you could study the outdoors at university either. So maybe if I'd known those things, it might have been different. But no, I definitely
Study
wouldn't.
biology, something like that.
You did?
No, no, I'm saying like you could, I guess.
Yeah, I guess like marine biology, but I wasn't really an
Very cool.
academic type. I'm a lot more of a practical person. I like to be doing things. So yeah, it wouldn't have been the way for me, but for some people it does work.
Sorry if there's dogs barking in the background. This is Mexico after all. Comes with makes it more authentic. Um, let's keep exploring that for a second. About um, what advice? How old are you now, by the way?
I'm 30.
You're 30. What advice would you give your 18 or 20-year-old self?
I would say for that phase in your life, just experiencing is the best thing to do. I think a lot of people, whether they're pushed or they believe it is the right thing to do, they kind of begin uh, making decisions that are meant to last the rest of their lives without necessarily knowing. So, for example, a lot of the careers people study for at university, they don't actually know anything about when you begin that journey and you then start to add in all that pressure of studying and exams. And a lot of people find out it's not for them. So, I kind of feel those years 18 to 21, you really don't need to rush into any big decisions and actually just go in and see in the world, take a gap year or two, experience some things, and maybe you'll decide that actually, living in the city, going to London and being a banker, like that's what you're into, that's what you like, you want to earn a load of money and live that way, that's totally fine. But it can be nice to know for sure and to not necessarily rush into those things because I know from a lot of my friends or other people in the outdoors who have quit their more normal professional careers to then move into the outdoors and start to chase a life that they enjoy and are a bit more passionate about. It is an option for people who may just prefer to live more but with less.
What's it like when you go back to Buckinghamshire and London, catch up with old buddies who have taken a different path?
Um, it's good to a lot of those guys. They do. Um, they enjoy what they do. They do travel as well, and they kind of use their jobs to see the world. A lot of them. It is very interesting because yeah, we do lead very different lives. I can imagine doing what they do. They can imagine doing what I do. But it's good to see a lot of those guys do try and find a middle ground and do use their money to have other experiences with holidays and with other things. Um, but yeah, people kind of live in a few different worlds. There's a lot of people still in my hometown. Um, and that's what they like. The risk of traveling is not necessarily for everybody. The constant change of different environments isn't what appeals to everybody either. And I know some people do like the community of being in their hometown. So yeah, it is always a funny experience catching up with those guys, and especially like I mentioned on that first Kilimanjaro trip when a lot of my old buddies came on that one. It was really amazing to open their eyes to a deeper cultural experience in a much further away part of the world for some of those guys that have never left Western Europe before. But I also know it's not necessarily something they're going to do every year and regularly. So yeah, just different things for different people, But I think what's important is that people know what options are available.
I have a random question. I don't know why I thought of this, but when I think of your UK buddies, doing a bit of traveling, I just think about they're probably going to south of Spain and getting drunk, right? Have you ever done that where your buddies like invited you to south of Spain? They're like, "Oh, Chris, the traveler, you got to get over here." Maybe you go with them and you're there, and you're just like, "What the hell are we doing?"
uh, the kind of person I became really sort of kickstarted from like 20s and onwards. I actually was, I've been to Ayia Napa, I've been to Zante, I did the party islands when I was 16, 17 at high school. Like we flew out and just got pissed for like a week on a Greek party island. So I
Good
did
stuff.
that. I did that briefly, um, but then it's mostly when I started working in the outdoors. It then became more about the nature side of things. My friends still go to Ibiza, a few of them. I've never been. I'm not sure if I would or not. But you know, there's a different side of it. Partying can still be fun, but I think for me, I kind of see it in a week on a
Yeah.
party
It's not
holiday.
like
It
the
could be.
partying. It's like the style of travel where, going to like an Airbnb in the Algarve or something is very different than what you do. But they're both travel.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I get you. Yeah, a bit more of a luxury kind of travel.
It's luxury, but it's also like, I mean, there's a lot of different angles, but maybe they're not getting the full experience. They're going and getting. Lawrence King talks about this on Twitter. Like they'll go get the English breakfast, even though they're in Spain, and they're just hanging out with Brits, and they just kind of go to the beach and go back to the hotel or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, like
I don't know.
a
I think it'd just be funny to put you in that situation and see you sitting there kind of depressed or something.
oh man, you got to find an Irish bar in Thailand. It's the place to be.
Yeah, that's true.
No,
That's
I'm,
true.
I'm
That's
just
true.
kidding. But yeah, people are like that. People. That's just how some people like to live. There's some very funny TripAdvisor reviews for places in like southern Spain or in parts of Greece where English people are moaning about there's too many people speaking Spanish here. There's not enough like English food on the restaurant. Yeah, all this stuff is just pretty hilarious.
Ah, that's good. That's good. So what does the future hold?
For now, I'm really focused on growing my Global Shenanigans trips, trying to reach more people, trying to get the message out there for those who want to experience a bit more through their lives, and being focused on adventure travel. That's what I specialize in. So yeah, just trying to grow the brand, get more eyeballs on the trips, and then hopefully it means I can go full time and I'll be running these trips as of next year full time. So next year I've got I'm going to be doing the New Zealand summer season, which is obviously reverse, so that goes until April. And then I'll be heading out for Baja, Belize, go back to the UK for a bit, scout out some Euro trips, and then Kilimanjaro and Nepal as well for the rest of the year. So I'm hoping to keep growing those, add more locations, take more people on more trips, and just constantly be taking people around the world.
Cool. So when's Baja? Maybe I'll be able to do it.
Baja is in April.
Baja's in April. Okay.
April
Do
the
you have dates yet?
23rd. Yeah, the 23rd to the 30th.
Really? Okay. There's a chance. There's a chance I could do that.
That would be awesome.
I'd be down.
Maybe make
Baja's beautiful, man.
a My Latin Life Baja Kayak group. See if any of your audience are keen to join us. That would be incredible.
You know what's interesting about the way you're doing your trips is you're doing them like kind of one off, right? Instead of running it like every week of the year or of the season, right? It's like you really like for the listeners, it's only once a year almost, right? That you're going to be doing Baja.
Yeah, that's right. So what's different with my company is that I am co-leading every single trip. I'm in every location alongside locals who have that knowledge that I'll never be able to gain, the expertise. So yeah, I'm literally there on every single one. So it means that is the only time it's happening. Um, it may or may not happen the next year. It probably will, but it's not set in stone. So yeah, I kind of do it as like a this is happening. You should come because someone else might come up next year that I won't be at.
That's cool. Yeah. Okay. Okay. If anyone's listening, Vance might try to make it. Chris is going to be there. Baja, April. I like it. That could work. Wow, that's exciting, man. Camping on that island sounds so cool. Sounds so refreshing.
It is amazing. You really can't see anyone else. It's the time of year we go is kind of in the quiet season. So last time I was there, we were the only group out. Saw a couple sailboats in the distance, but that's it. Just 6 days of camping on beaches, eating incredible Mexican cuisine. If you catch any fish, the local guide Ramon, he is an excellent chef. Cooks up the food, the fish that you catch. We have it for dinner that day, and yeah, just kayak and snorkel our way around the island, looking for whatever comes to us.
Sounds like the perfect vacation to me. And I think we said something like if people reach out and mention My Latin Life, they might get little discount or something? Get treated a little better at least?
Yeah, that's it. If anyone listening wants to join, let me know that you heard of the trip from this podcast, and I'll give you a discount, give you a $200 off if you want to come and join us.
Boom. And how do they get in contact with you or sign up?
My website, www.global-shenanigans.com, has all the information on all my trips. But social media is a great way. Instagram at global_shenanigans, and then Twitter is G_shenanigans _. But yeah, Google Global Shenanigans and you can find me on whatever you want.
Awesome. Anything else you want to squeak in terms of places you want to direct the audience?
I think we pretty much covered it. If you were keen to see more about the Alaska kayak trip, for fun's sake expedition on YouTube, you can find the 9-part YouTube series on there right now.
Sick. So again, my guest today was Chris Whitaker of Global Shenanigans. Chris, thank you so much for joining. This has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast.
Thank you, Vance. This was super fun.